Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to kick off today's presentation with the theme, the living world. This is our first slide, so I just want to briefly introduce what we'll be exploring. We'll look into the fascinating diversity of life on Earth, how living organisms interact, and what makes the living world so incredible. We'll cover some key concepts and interesting facts along the way. So let's get started and dive into the amazing world of life around us. Let's take a closer look at the taxonomic aids we use to organize the diversity of the living world. Starting from the broadest category, we have the kingdom, which groups together large, fundamental categories of life. Moving down, we have the class, which narrows things further by grouping similar types of organisms within a kingdom. Next is the order, which classifies organisms that share even more specific features. Then we come to the family, which contains closely related genera, or groups of species. The genus itself is a way of grouping species that are very similar and closely related. Moving to the most specific level, we have the species, which identifies individual groups capable of interbreeding and producing fertile offspring. Finally, at the very core, we focus on the characteristics of living organisms. What makes something alive, and how we distinguish living from non-living things. All these levels, kingdom, class, order, family, genus, and species, help us systematically categorize and understand the vast diversity of life on Earth. They serve as our tools for navigating and making sense of the complex web of living organisms around us. Let's take a closer look at the characteristics of living organisms. These features help us distinguish living things from non-living things. First, living organisms are made up of one or more cells, which are like tiny building blocks that carry out all the necessary life processes. The cell is really the basic unit of life. Second, they have the ability to grow and develop over time. This means they can increase in size and go through different stages of life. Third, living things are capable of reproduction, which is how they produce new organisms, ensuring the survival of their species. Fourth, they respond to their environment. Whether it's a change in temperature, light, or touch, living organisms can react to survive and adapt. Fifth, they maintain homeostasis, meaning they regulate their internal conditions to stay stable, despite changes outside. Sixth, living organisms use energy, often from food, to perform all their activities, from moving to thinking. And finally, they evolve over generations through genetic changes, which helps populations adapt to their surroundings over time. All these characteristics together form the foundation of what makes an organism truly alive and connect directly to understanding the diversity and complexity of life on Earth. Growth cannot be a defining property of living organisms because not everything that grows is necessarily alive. For example, in living organisms, division is crucial because it not only contributes to growth, but also enables organisms to replace lost cells. This process of replacing cells is vital for maintaining health and function. When we look at non-living things like mountains, boulders, or sand mounds, their growth is quite different. It's mainly characterized by the accumulation of material on their surfaces, rather than cellular processes. So, while both living and non-living things can increase in size, the mechanisms behind their growth are fundamentally different. In multicellular organisms, cell division happens continuously in plants, supporting growth and development. In animals, it tends to occur at a certain age or during specific stages, like healing wounds or growing new tissues. For unicellular organisms, cell division directly means an increase in their number, effectively multiplying their population. Overall, growth in living organisms leads to an increase in both mass and number, reflecting the fundamental processes of cell division and reproduction. This distinction helps us understand what truly defines life and how organisms develop and maintain themselves. Reproduction is a fundamental characteristic of living organisms, and it's what allows life to continue and evolve. However, it's important to understand that non-living things do not reproduce, which clearly distinguishes living from non-living. When we talk about living things, some organisms, like mules, sterile worker bees, and infertile human couples, do not reproduce at all. These are good examples of exceptions to the general rule, and they help us see that reproduction isn't always straightforward. There are two main types of reproduction: asexual and sexual. Each has its own mechanisms and significance in the survival of species. Now, when we look at organisms like amoeba, bacteria, and chlamydomonas, they multiply rapidly and increase in number. This process can sometimes be mistaken for growth, but it's actually reproduction because they generate new individuals. Most organisms reproduce to create progeny that are similar to themselves. This similarity ensures the continuity of their genetic traits across generations. And finally, it's crucial to remember that reproduction is what sustains populations and ecosystems, making it a key concept in understanding life itself. Now, let's look at how metabolism is fundamental to life. Photosynthesis, which is anabolism, and cellular respiration, which is catabolism, are key examples of metabolic processes. These reactions involve the conversion of molecules, transforming one set of molecules into another, which is what we call metabolic reactions. It's important to remember that such reactions are characteristic of living organisms. Non-living things, on the other hand, do not have metabolism. They don't carry out these chemical transformations. The chemicals involved in these processes are known as biomolecules. These biomolecules are synthesized and transformed into other molecules, supporting the organism's growth and energy needs. Overall, metabolism is a defining feature of living organisms. Everything living is built from chemicals, both small molecules like sugars and amino acids, and larger ones like proteins and nucleic acids. In essence, metabolism is what keeps life functioning, connecting all these chemical processes to maintain life. Consciousness is really a defining property of living organisms. It sets us apart from inanimate objects and helps us understand what makes life unique. When we talk about defining properties, we're highlighting what makes living things fundamentally different. For example, plants respond to their environment, light, water, temperature, even pollutants, showing they have a way of sensing and reacting. Humans, on the other hand, experience self-consciousness, which is a more complex level of awareness about ourselves and our surroundings. All living organisms sense their environment through sense organs: ears, eyes, skin, and more. This sensory perception allows them to detect physical, chemical, or biological stimuli around them. And when these organisms detect stimuli, they respond to them. This response is crucial for survival and adaptation. So, to tie it all together, living organisms sense their surroundings or environmental stimuli, whether it's physical, chemical, or biological. And this process of sensing and responding is central to what we call consciousness. It's a fundamental aspect that helps organisms survive, adapt, and thrive in their environments. Diversity of living world. 2. When we talk about the diversity of the living world, we're really referring to the incredible variety of life forms on Earth. This includes everything from tiny microorganisms to huge mammals and towering trees. It's this vast range of species, ecosystems, and genetic differences that makes our planet so unique. Understanding this diversity helps us appreciate the complexity of life and the importance of conserving it. Throughout this presentation, we'll explore how this diversity contributes to the stability and resilience of ecosystems. And it highlights why protecting different species is crucial for the health of our planet. Let's talk about the number of known species on Earth. Currently, it ranges from about 1.7 to 1.8 million. That's an incredible diversity of life that scientists have identified so far. However, it's important to remember that this number is just a portion of the total species that actually exist. Many more are likely still undiscovered. Now, moving on to the concept of biodiversity. This term refers to the variety of plants and animals in a specific region. Basically, it's a way to measure how rich and diverse a particular area is when it comes to different forms of life. Connecting these ideas to the bigger picture, understanding how many species there are and how diverse they are helps us appreciate the complexity of ecosystems. It also underscores the importance of conserving this incredible biological variety for the health of our planet. Plants follow the principles and criteria set by the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, or ICBN, while animals adhere to the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature, or ICZN. These codes help us establish a standardized system for naming organisms. Scientific names are assigned to all known organisms, whether they are plants, animals, or other living things. This process of scientific naming is crucial because it allows us to communicate clearly and precisely across different languages and regions. Standardizing naming ensures that everyone around the world uses the same names for the same organisms, reducing confusion and making research and conservation efforts much more effective. Living organisms are classified into categories, like genus and species, to help us organize and understand the diversity of life. This classification system makes it easier to remember, study, and analyze different organisms. Ultimately, the purpose of classification and nomenclature is to provide a clear, consistent framework for naming and understanding the incredible variety of life on Earth. Let's take a closer look at this example, Mangifera indica Linn. Here, you can see that Linn indicates the author of the name. When we write biological names, they are typically in Latin and italicized. The genus name starts with a capital letter, while the specific epithet or species name is in lowercase. Now, moving on to the core concept of naming rules, it involves giving an organism a name made up of two parts, the genus name and the species name, also known as the specific epithet. This two-component system is called binomial nomenclature. Interestingly, this system was first introduced by Carolus Linnaeus in his book, Systema Naturae, which laid the foundation for modern biological classification. So, in summary, binomial nomenclature is a standardized way to name organisms clearly and consistently, and it all stems from Linnaeus's innovative approach. This method helps us communicate precisely about species across different languages and regions. Let's take a closer look at how we categorize living organisms. The arrangement includes categories such as kingdom, phylum or division, class, order, family, genus, and species. These categories form what we call the taxonomic hierarchy, which helps us organize and understand the diversity of life on Earth. Systematics is the branch of biology that deals with this classification process. It's not just about naming organisms, it's about understanding their relationships and evolutionary history. When we study systematics, we look at how different organisms are related, often using their physical features or genetic information. To do this effectively, systematics considers a variety of data: external structures like body shape and size, internal structures such as organ systems, cell structure, development patterns, and ecological information. All of these aspects give us clues about how organisms are related and how they have evolved over time. Now, modern taxonomy, the science of classifying living things, relies heavily on these diverse sources of information. It's a dynamic field that continually updates our understanding as new data becomes available. In essence, taxonomy is the process of organizing and classifying organisms based on their characteristics. This helps us not only identify different species, but also understand their place in the broader web of life. So, through taxonomy and systematics, we're able to piece together the story of life's diversity and evolution, which ties back to the overall theme of understanding biological relationships. Let's take a closer look at species. This slide highlights some of the essential points about different species and their significance. First, understanding species diversity is crucial because it helps us appreciate the variety of life forms on our planet. Each species plays a unique role in maintaining ecological balance, and losing one can have ripple effects throughout the ecosystem. When we talk about species, we're also referring to the importance of conservation efforts. Protecting endangered species isn't just about saving individual animals, it's about preserving the intricate web of life that sustains us all. Throughout this presentation, the theme has been about understanding our environment and recognizing our responsibility to protect it. Species are at the heart of that message. The more we learn about them, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions that support biodiversity and sustainability. So remember, every species counts, and each one has a part to play in the health of our planet. Today, I want to highlight some examples of how different species are classified and distinguished from one another. For instance, we have Panthera tigris, which is the tiger, and Panthera leo, the lion. These are two very well-known big cats, but they are clearly different species with unique characteristics. Then, we have Solanum tuberosum, which is the scientific name for the potato, and Solanum nigrum, commonly known as black nightshade. Again, these are two plants within the same genus, but are distinctly different species. The key point here is that despite similarities, each species has its own unique traits that set it apart. This ties into the broader idea of what defines a species, a group of individuals that share fundamental similarities and can successfully reproduce among themselves. Understanding these distinctions helps us appreciate the diversity of life and how organisms are categorized based on their biological and genetic differences. This foundation is crucial as we explore the broader concepts of taxonomy and species classification throughout this presentation. Let's take a closer look at the concept of genus. When we talk about genus, we're referring to a category that groups together species based on shared characteristics. It's a way of organizing biological diversity, making it easier to understand relationships among different organisms. Think of it as a broader family that includes several closely related species. Recognizing the genus helps us see the connections and evolutionary links between various organisms. Throughout this presentation, understanding genus will help us grasp how different life forms are classified and how they relate to each other in the bigger picture of biodiversity. Let's look at some specific examples of species within the genus Panthera, such as Panthera leo, which is the lion, Panthera pardus, the leopard, and Panthera tigris, the tiger. These examples help illustrate a key point. Related species within a genus share several common features, which set them apart from species in other genera. The idea is that genera are essentially groups of closely related species that have evolved from a common ancestor. They share many characteristics, but each species also has unique traits that distinguish it from the others. So, understanding what a genus is, an aggregate of closely related species, helps us see how biodiversity is organized in the animal kingdom. It's a way to categorize and understand evolutionary relationships. In the context of this presentation, recognizing these relationships helps us appreciate the diversity within the big cat family and the importance of their shared features. Let's take a closer look at the concept of family in this context. Family is often the foundation of our personal lives, but it also plays a crucial role in shaping our values and behaviors. When we talk about family here, we're emphasizing the importance of support, connection, and shared responsibility. These elements are essential not just in personal relationships, but also in how we build strong communities and organizations. Recognizing the role of family helps us understand the broader social fabric and the ways in which individual actions can impact the collective well-being. So, as we move through this presentation, keep in mind how the concept of family ties into the bigger picture of our work and societal growth. Let's take a closer look at some examples of plant and animal families. The family Felidae, which includes well-known big cats like lions, tigers, and leopards, also encompasses the smaller domestic cats, all grouped under the genus Feles. On the plant side, we have the family Solanaceae, which includes diverse genera such as Solanum, Petunia, and Datura. Families are primarily characterized based on specific vegetative and reproductive features, meaning their leaves, stems, flowers, and reproductive structures help define them. It's important to note that a family is made up of related genera, but these genera tend to share fewer similarities with each other than the genera within the same family. So, in essence, a family is a way to organize and relate different genera that share certain key features, but still retain their own unique characteristics. This classification helps us understand the relationships among different plants and animals, which is foundational to our overall study of biodiversity and taxonomy. Let's take a closer look at Class 6. In this section, we'll explore some of the key concepts that are crucial for understanding the overall framework. It's important to grasp how this class connects to the broader themes we've been discussing, especially in terms of application and impact. As we go through, I'll highlight the most important points to keep in mind, and I'll make sure to relate them back to our main objectives. This will help you see how each piece fits into the bigger picture, and why it matters for your understanding and future application. Now, let's look at class Dicotyledonnae, which includes orders like Polemoniales and Sapindales, the latter of which contains the mango. This class is characterized by plants that typically have two seed leaves, or cotyledons, and share certain morphological features. Moving on to class Mammalia, this group encompasses various orders, including Primata, which features animals like monkeys, gorillas, and gibbons, as well as Carnivora, which includes carnivorous mammals. A key point to remember is that a class groups together all related orders that share several common characteristics, helping us understand how different species are classified in a broader context. This classification system highlights the evolutionary relationships and shared traits among these organisms, forming a central theme in our overall discussion of biological diversity and taxonomy. Let's take a closer look at the kingdom. This slide highlights some key concepts that are essential to understanding the overall structure we're discussing. When we talk about kingdoms, we're referring to the highest taxonomic rank, which groups together all forms of life that share fundamental characteristics. It's a way of categorizing the diversity of life on Earth into broad, manageable categories. Within this framework, there are several major kingdoms, such as Animalia, Plantae, Fungi, Protista, and Monera, each representing different types of organisms with distinct features. Recognizing these kingdoms helps us understand how different life forms are related and how they evolved over time. Throughout this presentation, we've seen how classification helps us organize biological diversity, and the concept of kingdom is foundational to that. It's interesting to think about how these broad groups serve as the building blocks for more detailed classifications, like phyla, classes, and so forth. So, as we move forward, keep in mind that the idea of a kingdom is crucial for framing our understanding of life's complexity and interconnectedness. This concept ties into the overall theme of understanding biological diversity and evolutionary relationships. Now, let's talk about the highest category of taxonomy, which is the kingdom. This is a fundamental level because it groups living things into broad categories based on key characteristics. For example, plants are classified under the kingdom Plantae, and animals fall under the kingdom Animalia. These categories help us understand the diversity of life and how different organisms relate to each other. Recognizing these kingdoms is essential for organizing biological information and studying the relationships among living things. So, when we refer to the kingdom, we're essentially talking about the largest, most inclusive categories that group similar organisms together. Let's take a closer look at taxonomic aids. These are tools that help us classify and identify organisms more accurately. They include things like dichotomous keys, field guides, and identification charts. The key point here is that taxonomic aids simplify the process of distinguishing between different species, especially when they look similar. They serve as practical references that support the broader goal of understanding biodiversity and organizing it systematically. By using these aids effectively, we can ensure more precise identification, which is essential for research, conservation, and education. Ultimately, taxonomic aids are essential tools that connect us directly to the natural world, making complex classification systems more accessible and manageable. Now, let's look at some common types of taxonomical aids that are used in the study of classification and identification. These include zoological parks, museums, botanical gardens, and herbariums. Each of these plays a crucial role in helping us understand the diversity of life. A zoological park allows us to observe animals in a setting that mimics their natural habitats, making it easier to study their behavior and characteristics. Museums, on the other hand, are invaluable for preserving specimens, fossils, and models that serve as references for identification and research. Botanical gardens provide a living collection of plant species, which helps in studying plant diversity, growth habits, and ecological relationships. Herbariums are collections of preserved plant specimens that are meticulously cataloged. These are essential for detailed taxonomic work, especially when identifying or comparing plant species over time. All these tools, zoological parks, museums, botanical gardens, and herbariums, are collectively known as taxonomical aids. They are fundamental because they support classification and identification, which are the backbone of systematics. The importance of these aids lies in their ability to deepen our understanding of biodiversity and bioresources, helping us conserve and utilize these resources effectively. The main purpose of taxonomical aids is to facilitate accurate identification and classification of organisms, which is essential for scientific research, conservation efforts, and sustainable management of biological resources. In summary, these aids are indispensable tools in taxonomy. They help us document, study, and appreciate the incredible diversity of life on Earth, aligning perfectly with the overall goal of understanding biological relationships and promoting conservation. Now let's talk about specimens. These include important details such as the date and place where they were collected, as well as names in English, the local language, and their botanical names. This information helps us accurately identify and catalog each plant. Moving on to the concept of a herbarium, think of it as a storehouse or a library for plant specimens. These specimens are carefully dried, pressed flat, and preserved on sheets, making them easy to handle and study. Herbaria are incredibly valuable because they serve as a record of plant diversity, allowing researchers to study plants from different regions and time periods. They also help in identifying species, understanding plant distribution, and supporting conservation efforts. So, in essence, a herbarium is a vital resource that preserves the physical characteristics of plants for future reference and study. It connects all these details and serves as a foundation for botanical research and education. A specialized garden containing living plant specimens meant for identification purposes, labeled with their scientific names. So, what we're talking about here is a botanical garden that's really focused on education and research. These gardens are carefully curated to include specific plants that help scientists, students, and enthusiasts identify and learn about different species. Each plant is labeled with its scientific name, which is crucial for accurate communication and study in botany. This setup allows for precise identification and comparison of plants, helping us understand plant diversity better. Overall, botanical gardens like these are essential resources for advancing botanical knowledge and fostering a deeper connection with plant life. Specimens are preserved in containers or jars, which helps protect them and keep them in good condition for study. Preservation is an essential part of collecting biological samples, allowing scientists to examine and compare them over time. Museums play a crucial role in this process, holding collections of preserved plant and animal specimens. These collections serve as valuable resources for research, education, and reference. When we talk about a museum, we're referring to a place that safeguards these specimens, making them accessible for scientists and the public alike. Overall, preservation and museum collections are fundamental in understanding and documenting the diversity of life on Earth. Zoological parks are fascinating places where wild animals are kept and cared for in environments that aim to protect and simulate their natural habitats. These facilities serve not only as homes for animals, but also as centers for education, research, and conservation efforts. When we talk about a zoological park, we're referring to a dedicated space that provides a safe and nurturing environment for a diverse range of species. This helps us understand the importance of preserving wildlife and promoting awareness about their roles in our ecosystems. Overall, zoological parks are vital in fostering a connection between people and wildlife, encouraging conservation-minded attitudes that benefit the planet as a whole. A key is a really useful tool when we're trying to identify different plants and animals. It works by guiding us through a series of paired statements, each helping us narrow down our options step by step. Think of it as a logical decision-making process where each choice brings us closer to the correct identification. When we talk about a key, we're referring to a sort of structured pathway that uses specific characteristics to distinguish between species. This makes it much easier to pinpoint exactly what we're looking at, especially when dealing with similar-looking organisms. So, in essence, a key is a taxonomical tool, meaning it's a method used to classify and identify living things based on their traits. Understanding how to use keys effectively is fundamental in biology and helps us organize the diversity of life in a clear, systematic way.